What's up, you guys? This is Ross, and you're tuning in to Next Elevation. I want to talk about two different types of dark places. What happens to you when you are in a dark place, right? When you are in darkness, what happens? What's going on? And I know a lot of people, when we're in a dark space, when God sits us alone, we tend to ask these questions. We tend to just be in a very dark place. And I want to go right off the top and say there's two different types of dark places, right? There is a dark space where you are dwelling in lust, where you are dwelling in stealing, where you're dwelling in cheating, where you're dwelling in manipulation, where you're dwelling in doing things of the flesh, right? That you are conscious of, like you know exactly what you're doing in the darkness, which means that what you're doing in the darkness is satisfying you in some type of way. When you're vibrating on a lower level, you're vibrating on a lower level in the spiritual realm to where you can't even see the top, which means you can't even tell right from wrong because you're dwelling so low in a dark space. For instance, even if you're dwelling in lust, you're dwelling off what your flesh is wanting you to do. You're not dwelling, you don't care what the outcome may be. You're not caring what anything can happen to you. That is a dark space that I'm talking about. But that's not the dark space that I want to speak about, right? Because it's easy to dwell to the enemy and what he wants you to do and all of those things. But I want to shine a light on when you're in a dark place and you necessarily don't want to be there. It's a place where you're conscious of a lot. And that place isn't fun. That place sometimes make you even want to get out of that place any way, shape, or form. Like even if you do consider committing suicide, right? It's considered our hell on earth, right? And I want to talk about that dark place because that dark place is different from the dark place I spoke about. You know, you can rape, you can steal, you can kill, you can do all of those things and not care. Versus a dark place you're in and you really want to get out and you're calling for God and it seems like God is not hearing you. It seems like you're just in this space where you just want to get out by any means necessary. What is happening in that dark place? What is happening when God is silent, right? Because that's number one, what we feel. God, you're silent. You're not hearing my prayers. I'm in this dark place way too longer than I'm comfortable in. But God does his best work when he's silent. When you can't hear him, that's because he's too busy working on your behalf, right? That dark place is designed exactly for you. That dark place is where you do the most healing. That dark place is where you share the most tears. That dark place is where you will be able to hear God. Even when you feel like you can't in the first like trimester. That dark place is designed to transform you, right? It is designed to change you. That's where the most beautiful butterflies ascend. That is where the most transformation really happens. The beginning of our darkness, we are questioning our darkness, right? I'm going to take you through like phases of darkness. It's like once you first get into your dark space and you're not familiar with it, you normally, everything is going right in your life. You normally can be able to handle everything. Everything is just peaches and cream. And you get in this dark place and you're like, I gotta get up out of here. This is not for me at all, by far. I don't know what this is. And it's uncomfortable. You don't want to be in it, but you're there. And God needs you to listen. God needs you to silence. Peace, be still. He needs your undivided attention. Because it was too much noise where you were at. It was too much sin where you were at. It was too much distraction from your calling where you were at. So when you have a calling on your life, God is going to sit you aside, right? Because in order for you to grow, you need to learn certain lessons to get to the next level. So he's going to sit you down. You're going to learn a couple lessons in that dark season. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel abandoned. You're going to feel like there's nobody there for you. God is going to make a lot of things aware to you in that dark space. But you have to be willing to not only to accept the call of being in darkness, but you have to be willing to be aware of the lessons God is trying to teach you and trying to show you while you're in that dark space. God is going to release you. He's going to eventually release you out of that dark space. Because the dark space is not meant to torture you. So it's not like he's going to keep you in there forever until you learn your lesson. Nah, he's going to release you. There's a lot of tests that's going to come along. There's a lot of temptation that's going to come along when you're going back out of that darkness. And then you're right back in. You're right back into darkness and you're back to calling God. Why this? Why that? Why am I back here? Why am I this? Why am I that? It's because God is trying to get you to see something that you are not seeing. And that he knows where you want to be. But he also sees you still, in a place of not where he wants you to be. Right. And that dark place isn't even if we're not doing anything wrong and we are in that dark space. Let's just say someone ended up being raped or being abused and we're in this dark space of not feeling like we want to be here. We want to know that dark space is designed for you, right? When you was planted in your mother's womb, he says she can handle this dark place. Because that testimony is going to cure other people, hearts, mind, body, soul, whatever, right? And even though the storm, the darkness looks so dark, where you reach out to other things to try to compress or seal that pain, you assume to find out that drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever the case may be that you try to cover up, is not going to work, right? And you're right back into that dark place. But that dark place is to get you to acknowledge what you're going through. Acknowledge that pain. Acknowledge all of those things so he can bring you out of there just as stronger as you came in. So when you're in that dark place, it's not to kill you, but it's to break you gracefully from what the enemy thought he had sealed upon your life. God says, no, I need to take her in. I need to silence everything around her, and I need to break him or her. Right? Even if it is jail, I need to silence everything around him. I need to silence everything around her. Because jail is going to save her life. This dark place is going to save her life. Poverty is going to save her life. Being alone is going to save her life. His life, her life, whoever's life. Because what I'm doing right now, I'm transforming you. I'm getting you to see that the people that you can count on, you can't count on. I'm getting you to see that what you thought could harm you really made you stronger. I'm here to show you that even in the midst of the storm, there is peace. God will never leave you, nor will he forsaking you. Right? God says, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Right? God comforts you. He's there with you. Right? He is the light in the darkness. Right? So when the demons comes and that light is shone upon them, they must flee because they cannot stand the darkness. Right? So when God puts you there, it's because of a reason. And it's not for you to give up, commit suicide, dwell in drugs and alcohol, because that's exactly what he wants you to do, the enemy. And God says, nah, not this one. So when God is keeping you, even though you feel like you're going through hell, you're not. You know, you may be behind on bills. You may be, jobless, whatever the case may be. But you will always find yourself being kept. Mentally, you're out of there. You're gone. Everything in your life couldn't be no worse. But if you truly look around, God is still keeping you. He's keeping you for a reason, because there is greater for you. So when God takes you out and brings you back into darkness, in and out, 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 it's because he's healing you and preparing you, testing you, bringing you back in, healing you, preparing you, testing you, bringing you back in. The more you come in, the stronger you are, the stronger your faith is, because you're acknowledging and you're seeing that God didn't only, if he brought you back out one time, he can do it again. That's exactly what he's doing. He's building your trust with him, and you're not even knowing it. He's building you up. That little butterfly, is being transformed so it can fly. Excuse the noise, y'all, my son. But that's why I wanted to talk about this flower. This flower is one of the flowers of, not only one of the flowers that blooms in darkness, right? It dwells in the shade. It dwells in darkness. When I seen that flower, it really touched me, because I've been in dark places like there's no other. And when I seen and heard about this flower, it captivated my attention, because I was like, wow, like God does his best work in the darkness. And you have to believe that, because God is not going to leave you alone, especially if that's not a place you want to be in. It's different if you're dwelling in sin and you're dwelling in the dark places and you have no care in the world. But now if God sees you and he's hearing your prayers, he's silent for a reason. And in that moment, it's not for you to question God's silence, but it's for you to get on your knees in prayer and meditate and to hear what God is calling you to do. Sometimes it's to do nothing, and sometimes it's to prepare. Prayer is for you to speak to God. Meditation is where you hear from God. Right? God is calling you out of your dark places. And how he calling you out of your dark places? He calling you out of your dark places he's going to bring you in your dark places to call you out of it. And I know that sounds like, what do you mean? Why would he even bring me in? Just call me back out, because you were in a dark place and you didn't even know it. He needed to bring you. He needed to bring the dark place. He needed to bring that to your awareness. So when you're in there, you're not in there alone, right? God has angels attending to you, speaking to you through him, sending messages from the source straight to you. Right? So when that flower that I was speaking about, when it blooms in the darkness, it brought my attention to how good and amazing God is, and how God does his best work in the darkness. That flower, that beautiful flower that wasn't anything, but once the shadow hit, once the darkness hit, it bloomed. So when you wake up in the morning, when people see you, when you come to light, they see something amazing, something different than what they saw before it went into darkness. So yeah, it's hard. It is extremely hard being in darkness. How do you get out? How do you keep a peace of mind? That's where you build that trust. That's where you build, that's where you rely on God. That's where he wants you to be. You can't call on anyone else in the darkness, because sometimes you can't even call on people when you're in a dark place. You sometimes you just can't. The only person sometimes you have to call on is God. And that's exactly where he wants you to be. He needs you to be fully reliant on him. When he has you in that place, he knows that that's where the trust begins. He's going to he's going to start to show himself to you. And the more and the more you trust him, the more he shows himself to you. And that's when you begin to fully lean on him. And that's when he begins to bring you out. Because you begin to be ready, right? It's like that saying where God tests you in the wilderness so he can trust you in the promised land. You can't be asking God to put you here when you still vibrating here, when you're still at this level. It's not going to work. That's why he has to expose you to the things that is not of your highest good. He has to expose and bring light to your demons so they can flee. He has to. No, it's not easy. I'm not going to pretend like it is. But he needs you to trust him fully. You have to fully surrender to God's calling. Darkness is an opportunity for growth. Darkness is an opportunity for growth. Darkness is an opportunity for you to shine your light. So, I pray that this helps someone. I love you guys. Bye.